Hello, 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 you best listeners, you. I'm so excited today, because not only are you the best listeners, and thank you for coming to Mission Accepted podcast. If you are a listener, we love you. And there's many of you that I have great relationships with because you call me and you email me. And if you want to be on the show, I want you to be on the show. So you know where to go. But I got to tell you, listeners, but man, you are hungry. You're hungry for life. You're hungry for, oh, let me guess. That takes me into introducing our incredible, fabulous fellow foodie. You guys know I love food. You know how they say, people shouldn't be scrolling on their phone and it's not a way to get to decompress. I have a serious addiction to the food channel. And a fellow foodie friend of mine, whom we both are inspired by the same person, which we'll get to later, is here with us today. This is Mary Lummerding, and you may recognize her from the 262 Project. Yes, she's in the book. Yes, she spoke. Yes, she's speaking again because people are hungry to hear what she has to say too, not just you cool people. So if you don't know Mary, Mary is a personal chef and a cooking coach. Okay. Don't we all want a personal chef? Isn't that something that goes on your treasure map, on your dream boards, on your vision? I have written that many times. I just want someone to cook for me. It's so incredible and it feels so pampering. And honestly, sometimes it doesn't even matter what it looks like or tastes like, even though that's important. And Mary's going to tell you that. It's just when someone cooks a meal for you. Sometimes it can be poached eggs on toast, and it feels good to have someone love on you. But here's what is nice about Mary is that she teaches us how to do that for ourselves as well. So Mary, welcome to the Mission Accepted podcast show.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here on your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what you do is super important. Not only do we like you to cook for us, woo, 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 but you know what? There's so many things about food that's so we listen to like nutrition for the soul, and having a good digestion allows you to digest all the things going on in your body. And I think, we've had this great, revolution around food in terms of, the things that people, were eating that aren't good for you. I don't think it's a surprise anymore that our body really needs good nutrition and cellular, and there's all sorts of awakening that's happened around food. But on the other side, as our world has become awakened, and there's been, a rise in entrepreneurship and a rise in bigger families and a rise in abundant things to do, because we don't use the word be here, is that it also can scrimp on people's times. And sometimes when people are tested in terms of the clock, they don't eat as well. They grab things quickly. The world has become abundant, but it's also become really convenient. So I am so glad that you're here today. And a lot of people probably haven't heard of the word cooking coach, right? They're like, oh, you can go to a cooking class. You can watch a show that'll teach you how to Julia Child, duck à l'orange, but we don't know what a cooking coach is. So can you please enlighten us?
Sure. Thanks, Deb. A cooking coach, I think I created the position because I see people going for cooking lessons and they go home, they have a pile of recipes, but they don't have necessarily the skills, the food at home, or the equipment, or even the space. So I like to help people to figure all of that stuff out so that they can make the recipes.
Yeah, well, I can imagine that happens quite a bit, right? We get inspired and then we get motivated, and then, or sometimes things look really great and it requires all these, maybe spices or herbs or even terminologies that we don't really know, right? It's like, and how that works. And there's always something different about, going to the movie and then writing the movie yourself. I mean, there's always something different about that. So how does that start for people? Like when people contact you, what's going on for them? Like, why do people need, I mean, we all need a cooking coach, we all need a personal chef. Okay, we ticked that box already, but when do people call you? Why should they call you? And what is it that you're doing for people?
They contact me because they don't feel like cooking, but they feel that they should be cooking. That maybe they used to cook and they're bored with it. and they want some direction, some inspiration. And I like to help them to get back on track cooking or get started cooking, like get organized and make it easier for them.
Well, what inspired you? I mean, I'm sure that wasn't, like, hey, what is maybe your professional background? How did you decide
Oh,
that you wanted
okay.
to do this? Where did that
Yeah.
inspiration?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, I have been a professional cook. I took my chef's training at George Brown College in Toronto. That was a 2-year course because it included chef training, the baking, and managing a kitchen. And I cooked professionally for 10 years. But then I moved into working for the government. It was a little bit more stable. And I raised my son who has ADHD and worked with him, helping him. And we worked side by side in the kitchen. He liked cooking. He liked coming in and cutting the vegetables for me. So we actually had a little truck that he would stand on that got him up to the counter, and then we would cut the vegetables. And it was a good time because when you're with kids, they don't want to be drilled about their day or what's going on. But if you can work side by side with your child, then it helps. They're sort of focusing on cutting the vegetables, and then we can talk at the same time, and they're more likely to share. And
Mhm.
also they're learning to cook. So I did that, and just like I bought a cookbook called for poke, making the bowl with the grains and vegetables and stuff. And it had all these ingredients. So I made a list and I went to a Japanese store to pick up the ingredients. And it turned out to be more of a takeout place. All these young people were hanging around, and I showed her my list and she had no idea what I was talking about. So, people need help to figure these things out, or else you're going to go back to, like you say, the chicken nuggets, or go back to McDonald's because it's a lot easier.
Yeah. It's easy to fall back on convenience, right? It's easy to tell ourselves we don't have time. Nurturing our meals isn't something that we normally think about. And I also noticed, so I'm with you, like hands down, we must have raised the kids the same way, because I have pictures of my son Ocean in the kitchen sink at 2, learning how to crack eggs, right? And by the time he was 12, he literally was cooking the Thanksgiving turkey, and we used to call him Mini Martha Stewart, but he really took to cooking because it is creative. And my daughter cooked as well. And now, I mean, I keep saying that we need to buy her a bakery, but she loves to bake and loves to cook. It is a time of commune, right? I mean,
Yes.
I think it's such a bonding time, and you are absolutely right. Now, I got more out of my daughter going shopping. And just, and as we were shopping, she would divulge all this stuff that was going on at school and her feelings. And in the kitchen, I think for my son, it was a lot about community because he didn't know any different. I'm sure he thought all his friends cooked in there as well. Every time his buddies came over, of course, we would cook things like cookies and brownies and things like that with no sugar, and they didn't know it. But they didn't know it, but it was almost, it didn't look like a craft. It wasn't like I was learning something that wasn't, but it was a very creative, but it was an instant gratification sense of accomplishment. So
Mhm.
literally we could do something, and within a half an hour or an hour, there was a product, whatever it looked like, whatever it tasted like. It didn't really matter, but there was a great sense of accomplishment. Like, we made these so we can eat them, almost more legitimized, instead of coming in and saying, hey, can I have, 3 brownies? And you'd normally say no. So it was like,
Yeah.
but I made these. So for us, it was really that as well. We were talking a little pre-show about one of the people that inspired you. Maybe share with us who that is and how they inspired you.
Yes, Jamie Oliver really inspires me, partly because I like the way he cooks. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And it's fun. He just throws it all on a wooden board and then serves it up. And it's a lot more fun. Um, but also he travels around and learns from different people. There was one time where he visited markets, and he's he's lucky he's able to go with the restaurant owner to the market. They pick up a few fish and different things to eat, And then they go back to the kitchen and cook together, which would be so much fun. And he includes his children. There's some very funny stories. But also, I watched his series when he did Cooking with America or something like that. And he was trying to get people to just make an omelet for themselves. He'd give them a burner. There was like a gym full of these little mini workstations. And he got them to make omelets for themselves just to show how easy it can be to make your own food. You know, you buy a few eggs and a fry pan and a flipper, and you can make yourself an omelet,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be so easy. And he's just, yeah.
I would agree with you. We talked pre-show. I think all of us were nodding our heads when we were talking about Jamie Oliver. First of all, I think there's something very easy about him, right? Like when he explains things, there's now, I mean, I mean, there's very few people on the World of Food channel that I don't identify with or have fun with, but for him, he's easy. His voice is easy. It's kind of poetic. I think for me, it was easy for Jamie Oliver to be with the kids, like when I was cheeking with the kids, but that must have been the series that I watched. So I'm a fupa. I don't anymore, but you know, we used to have so in our house we had something called the family bed. It was mine. And we would get together once a week and all get together. And if any of us had anything to say to each other, so you know, my ex-husband, who wasn't my ex at the time, obviously we're all sitting in the family bed, but any of the kids could say something that bothered them, and you know, whatever. We just had this commune. So the bed was this hub, right? And so I had a TV in my room. It was very small, but we were watching Jamie Oliver. One day it just popped on. For some reason, me and my son and my daughter all popped in my bed obviously watching TV. And it was an episode that he did that he was showing how you could make your own chicken nuggets. And what really went into, like, he bought all the stuff that the chicken nuggets that we know today at that, you know, famous restaurant that made them. And he showed what went in there. Now, I didn't say anything to my kids. I didn't, you know, we weren't obviously big. We didn't go to those kind of restaurants a lot anyways. I don't think my daughter even knew what one was till she was 5. And she was mad at me. I'd never taken her to because her girlfriend's mom took her. And she's like, hey, these are French fries. And so anyways, my kids watched, and I didn't sit them down and go, you need to watch this. But it made such an impression. It made such an impression. It was kind of harsh though, because when he showed them what it was, and it was obviously young kids, it showed them what it was versus, you know, making them themselves. It was interesting. Not everybody was on to the whole new thing. It just was interesting how it really didn't get into their head. And here's me as a parent going, oh my God, I didn't even know that those were the ingredients. But it got in my kids' head so much that it almost became this like place you should never go. And it's so, I was like, oh, thank you, Jamie Oliver. You just did so much work for me. But yeah, he's a really good guy. He's a really good guy. Let's talk a little bit about you know, we'll get past Jamie because we're all inspired. And I think that we do get inspired. I think food is inspiring. Culinary has really, it's gone from dry, you know, when I was in school, we had cookbooks and there wasn't very many pictures. And if they were black and white. But the world of culinary has become an adventure, and going to restaurants and seeing how they make these incredible food and, you know, just how they take care of the food and prepare the food. And it's such an experience now. Going for dinner is such an experience now. And you know, maybe that's intimidating for people to come home and create that same environment at food. But what are some of the things that how you help people? I mean, you're in your home kitchen and they're like, okay, I need to create something. What are some of the things that you do to help people do that?
Okay. Well, the first thing I would have them do is turn on the music because that just lightens the mood. You know, there's different kinds of music, of course. There's cooking music, there's cleanup music, and there's eating music. Eating music is very mellow and calm, sort of. We play old blues music, and I just put on either YouTube or Spotify. You know, it's easy to find playlists. And so when somebody is starting out cooking, I would put music on in the background because it just helps people calm and relax. And then we would, I encourage them to clear out their space. You know, you need working space. If the counter is cluttered, you end up stabbing things with a knife. You know, if there's oranges and bananas and stuff all over the counter, you'll stab them. So you have to clear off your space and get all your ingredients ready so that you're not running all over the place. And just these little things that can really help to put it all together for people so that when they do go to make something, it's easy. And I
Mhm.
encourage people to clean up as they go along so that when they're finished cooking, they don't have a huge mess all over the kitchen. And after dinner, all you do is put the dishes in the dishwasher and you're finished. So I like to give people little steps that they can build on to make success in the kitchen.
I think that's wonderful. I mean, first of all, I think music should be in everyone's life, but I think that's really incredible. It reminds me of my first massage teacher, and she had different music for the beginning of the massage, different music during the massage, and then at the end of the massage, she put on a song that let you know when that song was done, it was time to get up, so that you'd had some rest time. But
Right.
I don't think people make cooking as fun as that. I don't think they set the stage, right? And I know that I've heard you share before, and I was laughing inside because, thank goodness I have some good kitchen counter space. But I mean, I'm like, how many people have a kitchen office? As an entrepreneur, we joke about it all the time. I have a couch office, I have a kitchen office, I have a dining room table office. I mean, we joke about it all the time. And then, of course, we have our office, which for me has the least amount of paperwork, but we take things with us, or people drop things, or they have something in the kitchen where they drop their wallet and they drop
Yeah.
their keys and all that kind of stuff when they come in. And as soon as you said bananas and oranges, how many people have food? I've got containers of tea, in the space that you should be cooking,
Mhm.
and it's cumbersome. It doesn't make you necessarily feel like this is a place where you're cooking something to make you feel good. And we
Yeah.
also know that food puts you in a great happy place. And I'm sure you're even digesting your food better and taking in the nutrients better, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
While you're saying that, I'm picturing having a tray on the counter so that the knives, the keys, and the mail go onto the tray, and then when you want to cook, you just pick up the tray and put it someplace else, instead of all these bits and pieces that you have to pick up.
yeah, absolutely. That's a great
Yeah,
idea.
something like that.
Yeah, there you go. There you go, people. An excuse to go buy
Yeah.
yourself another beautiful container to put your things on that you can lift up and move, right? Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
What's one of the favorite things what is one of the favorite things about what you do? Like for you, what's one of the most favorite things for you?
One of my favorite things is just making suggestions and people go, "Oh yeah, that could work." I was talking to one woman and she said her son doesn't like his food touching. So I said, well, do you know about bento boxes? And she didn't. And bento boxes have, most of them have a lot of segments, and he could put each food into a segment and keep it totally separate, and she goes, oh, and it's so much fun to make suggestions to people. And I guess I have a lot of different experiences and I have a lot of different interests, and I'm able to bring all these ideas together that people don't necessarily think of. And it's so much fun to make a suggestion. And if it doesn't work for someone, we'll get together again and we'll hash it out and figure out something else. But it's fun to throw out ideas and encourage them to try.
I think that once people start to get into the habit of cooking for themselves, like it does, first of all gives you a sense of accomplishment, but also from an economic standpoint, Mary, what are some of the things that people can do? Because I've heard many times, now I'm, not your typical recipe person when I cook. So me and my son, we've been cooking for a long time. So we just look at a picture and adapt it to the way we want, or we know enough what to use. But I hear people go, yeah, but then I got to go buy this and this and this and this and this, and then I don't know what to do with it again. What are
Yeah.
some of the suggestions that you can suggest for people around, like, how do they get started, or how do they keep going, or like,
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of one time I was visiting a friend of mine, and she was a good friend, so I was able to go through her fridge. And I found out half an avocado and I said, well, what's this for? And she said, well, I made a recipe and I didn't know what to do with the other half. And so I looked a little bit more and she had some sour cream and green onions and a tomato. So I made a guacamole for her. But actually these days you can just go on the computer and put in, you know,
Mm,
half an avocado and you'll get a guacamole recipe for sure. But yeah, it's just encouraging people to, the computer makes it much easier.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's great. I mean, I never even thought to say that to people. Like, if you've got some spices and you're, go into the computer and say, hey,
Yeah.
I've got cumin, coriander, and ginger left over from this one curry I made. Now what do I do with it, right? And then
Yes. Yeah.
what people can do with the ingredients that are in their home.
Hmm.
I think that also there's people that come up against, like, so obviously you're a cooking family, we're a cooking family, but there's people that don't come from a cooking family. And one of my dearest best friends of 40 years plus, literally I'm like, why do you never have me for dinner? Like, I was like, why do you never have me for dinner? You're for dinner, your kids. She's like, I don't know how to cook. I'm like, you have 3 kids, what do you mean you never had to cook? I mean, I just, obviously I was never there for dinner to know. She's like, no. And I'm like, okay. And I literally had to teach her how to make spaghetti, which for some people be like, well, you just put us, but so for there's people that just really don't know how to cook because they weren't taught how to cook, right?
True. Yeah. There's generations now that grow up with takeout food. And uh, I know of one lady that it's part of her story is that she never saw her mom cook. They would go to Wendy's for a period of time and then they'd go to the other ones for another, and then they'd switch around. And yeah, some people don't. And I think the delivery services really help. I know one person that was gifted a year with a home delivery service, and that actually helped her to start cooking regularly. All of the ingredients are portioned out, the recipe comes in a card, and it made it very easy. But when you
Mhm.
were talking, it also reminded me of a fellow I met at a summit once, and I was talking about what I do. And he said that he tried one of those delivery service, but it took 30 minutes to make the meal. And he's used to just popping something into the microwave for 5 minutes. Why should he spend 30 minutes making something? And I said, well, how did the taste compare between the microwave dish and what you made? And he thought for a minute, I don't think he even really considered. And he said, it was much better.
Mhm.
And and I said, well, maybe it's worth the 30 minutes. But there's also other value in spending that 30 minutes in the kitchen. Partly, like you say, you're nourishing yourself, your body. It's a good break from his work. It actually helps the brain in in a neurological way. Sequencing, following directions, making decisions. There's all different kinds of things that add to the value of cooking. But it was very interesting that he just saw the 30 minutes versus 5 minutes and didn't even consider the flavor and the nourishment that was in the dish that he made.
That is eye-opening to me. And not in an insulting kind of way, or oh my gosh, in a way
Yeah,
that, because that wasn't how I was raised, I just don't think that. For me, takeout food was a treat. For us, you look at when takeout when I was younger was you had two choices. You could do Chinese food, you could do pizza, and
exactly.
sometimes they had lasagna. That's pretty well it. I don't think there was anything else that we chose from. Greek, maybe? I don't know. But for us, it was a big treat. But when you think about it like that from a time frame now, that is for us, it was like, oh, we're in a hurry, let's do it as an occasion. But I never really thought about people not comparing the difference or having, even I think the difference between, even when you have a really great restaurant, like I got a great restaurant up the street and they're like, oh, here comes the cauliflower chick. Like, I mean, I'm always ordering that, right? So I we have our favorite restaurants, but sometimes I think we don't realize how food, how good it does taste at home, right? It does, some people do it at home. They're like, oh, it's cheaper to cook at home. But I don't think they realize, can you share with us a little bit on that insight about what you're talking about? Because some people are like, well, what do you mean nutritionally or better for my brain or like just the difference? Because some people like, oh, let's go out for dinner has such a ring to it. Oh, we got to stay home tonight for dinner. Sometimes I don't think people have that sense of appreciation of just the value of staying home for dinner.
Ah, that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge, right? Now we're getting into cooking
How long do you
psychology
have?
101. Those are not on the questions we talked about. But no, I think
No, it's not that. It's just like there's so much in there. Like
yeah.
the flavor of the food, it's part of the slow food movement, I think.
Ooh,
Slowing
I like
down.
that hashtag slow food movement. That's the first time I've heard it. Yay, Mary. Tell us about this.
Yeah, it's part of slowing down in your life. Like they talk
Mm,
about not scrolling all the time, like
mhm,
put on the music, um, invite some people over and enjoy your food. Um, Restaurants are often loud and busy, and you can't always relax unless you're rich and get the private dining room in the back corner.
mhm,
Um, yeah, it's part of just slowing down and um, enjoying your food. Some people um, eat really slowly, like just chew your food and enjoy it. Like my husband eats really fast, and it's like slow down, slow down.
mhm,
But um, yeah, and I I guess it's just inviting people to find a simple recipe. Make a salad. Go
mhm,
to the store and buy a beautiful head of lettuce. You know, uh, some nice fresh red tomatoes. Find the reddest tomatoes, whether they're little ones or big ones. Get the reddest one. A nice cucumber, and smell the cucumber when you cut it. Like, cucumber smells so good. And maybe try a mango. Cut a mango and put that in your salad. Try something different and some sprouts and a nice salad dressing. I often don't make my own salad dressing because we buy a range of them. And but yes, salad dressing can be simple, but that's something else. But yeah, just put together a nice salad, turn on the music, set a place at the table, and sit down and eat and enjoy your food. And I invite people to just start with a simple salad
yeah.
and taste it. Mm.
I love that slow food movement because okay, I know that a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, adventurists, taking on the mission. What can we do? I know someone that listens to our show while they're doing yoga, which is awesome. Thank you very much. Um, but there's a lot of people working from home that eat standing up in between meetings,
Mhm.
right? They run to the kitchen, they're like, oh, I'm kind of hungry a little bit. They stand there, they shove some food in their face, and they get back to their desk.
Yeah.
Um, what's your opinion on eating at your desk while you're working? Do I need to ask you? Like, but this is truth, right? This is, hashtag real truth around food, but I
Mhm.
don't probably know how
Mhm.
nourishing that is, maybe.
Well, I think that's where smoothies come in, right?
Mm,
Mm, yeah, buy a really nice blender. If you're a successful entrepreneur, you can invest in one of those beautiful big ones and just put a whole bunch of stuff together, find a recipe. And I haven't made a smoothie in a while, but I know that some people make them, put them in the fridge. You could portion them out into the bottles and yeah, if you have a busy day with back-to-back meetings, have some smoothies put together ahead of time. And yeah, sometimes that's the way life is. You got to squish it in.
mhm,
And yeah, this is just taking that time, that prep time, when you have some time available, make
mhm,
a few smoothies or something easy so that you can get something more nourishing
mhm.
for in between, because that'll help keep your energy up for those meetings as well. I'm sure, you get through all those meetings and you're just wiped.
Yeah.
If you can have a smoothie, a good, solid, nourishing smoothie in between, then your energy is going to stay good right through the last meeting.
Well, here's the thing that I like in our conversation is that there has been just a multitude of different pieces of advice that you've given that some people are really going to glomp onto. And I think that's where the personal cooking coach comes from. It's like, look, it's like going to a trainer, right? Like I know I
Yes.
should and I
Yeah.
want to, but I don't
Mhm.
know where to start. And I look at all these weights in the gym and I'm intimidated. Like, this isn't my playground, you know. My uncle isn't Jamie Oliver. You know, I don't watch the Food Channel. Like
Yeah.
I look at pictures of food and go, someone probably put that together and that would never be me. So I think, you know, eating is necessary, but it can be also pleasurable and it can also be nutritious. And I
Yes.
don't think it needs to be, from what I've heard, it doesn't need to be expensive. There's things like time batching and even just that whole thing, like I can't get my kid to eat their lunch because their food is touching. And you're like, oh, well, that's easy. Go get a bento box. And they're like, what the heck is a bento box? Like those kind of things can make a whole big difference between, you know, a kid coming home and hasn't eaten their lunch and their mom's like, I'm wasting food. And honestly, there's just some really simple solutions. And I think that the nice thing about having a cooking coach is I can take my lifestyle and have a conversation with you with my lifestyle. You know,
Yes.
I start here. My kid has food allergies to this, you know, da da da. I'm finding I'm cooking 3 different meals. My kids don't want to eat, like all those things that people come up against, which is you know, the battle within to learn something new. But as a cooking coach, you're giving them those things that allow them to do what we all know that we need to do. I mean, this is not like, oh, really? We all need to eat better. We all need to eat healthy. You know, my Ayurvedic coach is like, you know, get up from your desk, go to your living room, leave your phone in your, you know, your office and go have that 20-minute just I'm going to have a snack. I'm going to eat my lunch, have it at the same time. Like all those little things that the decompression that happens. So many people are shoveling food, right? Like, you know, I call my son a vacuum. Now he's 20 and he shoves his food in his face. And I don't think he does it for any other reason than, you know, he just shoves his food in his face, you know, like,
Mhm.
you know, he's not mature enough yet to understand and appreciate. Um, but I think those are all the things that you're telling us that solves the solution for people. And even, you know, if someone is busy, that whole, this is, you know, it's a technique where you go and do something what people consider brainless to let your brain decompress and relax. And there's nothing like going in. Can you talk to people about food batching, time blocking for food batching? Like it's easy to say, well, you can make all your food in one hour for the week or whatever it is, which are
Yeah.
people are like, yeah, but doesn't it go bad? And I don't know how to like, can you talk about food batching a little bit? Because I think we think people know what it is, but I don't think they do.
Oh, food batching is actually picking a time in your schedule where you have a few hours to be able to make meals that you can make through for during the week. And some of them can be frozen. They only take a day or two to thaw out. Um, it's usually a time, first of all, you go shopping and pick up what you need. So before that even is meal planning, you know, figuring out what you're going to make. Maybe invite a friend or two over. I know someone that gets together every Sunday with a friend and they get together and make food for to help with the week. Some people they just chop a big pile of onions and celery and their vegetables so that it's easier to cook during the week. So it can be very simple as pre-chopping your vegetables and putting them in the fridge, or some things can be frozen, but um, just pre-chopping your vegetables or having them cleaned up. I like having my celery container, and I've trained my husband to clean up the celery so that I can just go in the fridge and grab a couple of pieces of celery. So when you get home from shopping, prep some of your vegetables, and then they're easier um, to prepare during the week. But also the batching, there's of course Facebook sites and YouTube channels that show that. And there was one woman that laid out, she made them for her kids too. So she made the egg wraps and So she had her paper out. I think it was 9 pieces of paper, and she did all this egg meals and then put them in the freezer. And then the kids could get up in the morning, pop it in the microwave for, I think it was a minute, 30 seconds, whatever they figured out it needed. And the kid could eat on the way to school,
Mhm.
which is not sitting at the table relaxing and eating, but it works for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's different ways of doing it. You just have to you have to look at your schedule. When are you available to do the work? One of my friends, one person I worked with, they did their shopping on Sundays. So Sunday afternoon they would do a bit of prep. And Mondays she was often home either doing housework or um, entrepreneur type work that she would do at home. So we had her putting on the slow cooker in the morning on Monday mornings, and she was able to make a bigger meal, say chili or some kind of stew, and then the extra would be frozen so that later in the week when they were really busy, they could take that meal out of the freezer and just heat it up, which I call it heat and serve.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get nice little containers, and they stack up in the freezer so they don't take a lot of space. They don't end up all over the place. And yeah, you can do a batch by just putting on the slow cooker.
Mm-hmm.
And there's books of slow cooker recipes where people have rewritten the recipes so that they taste better, they cook better. Like it used to be that everything went in at the very beginning, the raw meat and the vegetables, and the vegetables would be overcooked and the meat is not seared. And um, yeah, they were kind of gross. But you can find really good cookbooks for slow cooking and get a slow cooker and
Yeah.
but you have to put some planning into it. It
Yeah.
starts with meal planning and what do you like to eat? What can you get at your local store? How can you adapt for the recipe if you find something? Um,
Well,
just
it sounds to me, Mary, like probably the first decision is just making a decision to eat better, care for yourself a little more,
mhm,
recognize and do something about the fact that we need to take care of our bodies. They are taking care of us, and that food, for the most point, is our nutrition. Like it's
yeah,
our fuel,
yeah,
and so really. I think it's the same kind of decision we take when we're going to bed a little earlier because we know we need sleep. It's the same mindset around getting some exercise. It's the same mindset around hanging around with good people because it affects how we feel. And also that it's just a piece of self-care and basic nutrition. People call it like it's a basic nutrition. And I think eating well is a basic nutrition, it's a basic need. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before we kind of go into I'm going to ask you a question or two that's kind of maybe off, other than I would love to hear what your favorite pastime is.
my favorite pastime. I like going out in the garden. I like just stepping out the door. I just take a deep breath and, like you say, decompress. It just helps me relax. We have a marvelous bird feeder, so I get to watch the birds flittering around. And yeah, we grow a lot of our own food, and I just really like being out there nourishing the garden and working in the garden. We grow right now we're not today because it's snowing, but we have carrots and beets in the garden that we can pull up and they're just marvelous. And we also in the garage we have our garlic and onions and squash from the garden in the summertime. And yeah, I just love being out in the garden. And we also have a couple of nice Cape Cod chairs where you can just sit back and relax and drink my smoothie and relax and read or listen
Mhm.
to music. Yep. I like being out in the garden.
Good for the soul, good for the soul. Well,
Mhm.
anything else, food or personal chef or cooking that you want to talk about before we kind of start to wrap up here?
I don't think so. I just encourage people to close your eyes and where does food sit in your life? Just think about where does it sit in your life and how can you change or improve it or inspire yourself to discover something different. Yeah.
That's awesome. That'd make for a great meditation. All right. Great lead in to a self-care retreat. Oh, I know one of those that's going on. Okay, so we're going, look, we talked a little bit about music today and the power of music. And if anyone knows or has watched this show before, they all know that I think music's probably been my best therapist. So you, Miss Mary, if you were on your way to go to one of these gorgeous trips, maybe you're going to Cape Cod, who knows, but you're on your way to go to a desert island, and it's you, and you've got room for one suitcase in that, one record album or one piece of music in that suitcase before you go. What are you taking with you?
Wow, that's hard. I think I'm going back to Bruno Mars and Uptown Funk because that one gets me all the time. When I'm going to start cooking, I'll put on Bruno Mars and dance around the living room and the kitchen and just enjoy myself to
All
get
right.
ready to cook.
All right, you heard it here, Uptown Funk. Now we're all going to put on some Uptown Funk and make ourselves some beautiful, healthy food. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and your wisdom, and what an incredible journey. And I think people listening never really saw the multifacets of cooking and food and importance and self-care and nutrition and ideas, right? And it doesn't need to be grand, right? It doesn't need to be grand. You talked about throwing a mango in your salad to spice it up a little bit, and just the power of, hashtag slow food. I love that. It's going to be my little phrase for a little bit here, Mary. You're going to get sick of hearing about it. So look, listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in today. We so appreciate you, and we know you appreciate us because you let us know. So keep doing that. Share this information. That's what we come on mission, help people live and eat better and have more fuel. And we're here to help people like Mary get their word out, and we can only do that with your help. So please send this out. This is a fundamental podcast that all people need to read need to hear and watch. So thank you again. And we got this big party going on. It's the 262. If you want to be on the show, if you want to be in the book, if you want to be on the stage, you need to go to debdrummond.com and just fill out that contact and get in touch with me. It's not difficult. It's deb@debdrummond.com. It's debdrummond.com. And guess what? My name's Deb Drummond. So thanks for being you. Until we meet you again, you be well and you stay groovy. Thank you, Mary, for joining us today.
Bye.